I just want to mention, thank you, Jimmy, for coming. We really appreciate it, and we do look forward to working with you. And to one of Jimmy's points, if there is a hearing on an issue, it is so important for us to show up. The more people that show up, the better. The tenant organizations, they bring people out in force. For me to just show up and Harvey to come and a couple other members, it's not enough. We need you to be out there. So this young lady that spoke before, if you show up at city council when L&I's having a hearing, they need to hear your stories.
We don't often I don't get the information about the hearings until the last minute.
Yeah, so that is a problem. That's a big problem, and it's a big problem with our current city council. What used to happen in the past was when a council person was thinking about introducing a bill, what they would do is they would circulate the idea of the bill and they would send it out to the different stakeholders. And we were one of the stakeholders. We were involved in it, and we would weigh in on the bill. Okay. Then after they've gotten all that feedback, they would introduce the bill. So we knew about it. We knew what the bill was going to look like. We sort of knew what was going to be in there. Didn't know exactly what the language was going to be, but we had a good idea. And we were prepared for it. New city council, there's 3 council members. I'm not going to mention their names, but what they do now is they don't circulate the ideas ahead of time. They just go ahead and they introduce the bill, and they don't even send it to the other council members. They just introduce the bill, and then the next thing you know, a committee hearing is happening in a week. And I'm going to talk in a couple of minutes about diversion program. That's exactly what they did. So it's real hard for us to mobilize. You have a week, if that, to be able to get people together to be out there. Hopefully when Jimmy's there, that'll change.
I can guarantee you that I will make sure that my office sends notice to your officers ahead of time. As soon as we find out, that's a simple fix. You understand what I'm saying? But that just also lets you know they really don't want your opinion. That's why you have to go. That's why you have to show up. And that's why your vote counts. Sorry.
No, absolutely. Thank you. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't know how many of you have read in the Inquirer yesterday, there was an article about a fair housing case that was decided where there was a $450,000 settlement. It wasn't decided, it was actually a settlement that was completed with regard to that fair housing case. We do have with us today the famous author of that article, Michael Bond. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah.
From the Philadelphia Inquirer is here today. She's the one that actually wrote that article. And we're honored to have you here and thrilled that you could make it to our meeting. In that article, for those of you who haven't seen it, there was a settlement of $450,000, which was an enormous amount of money on a fair housing case. What I want to point out to you is that it wasn't just for the compensatory damages for the fair housing violation. What the complainant in that case was arguing is that they were entitled to consequential damages, which is a new concept in fair housing. And this is really important because that's why they were able to get $450,000. The person was looking for a bedroom on the first floor. The person was pregnant, had a couple of kids. It was a problem carrying groceries. It was difficult. The apartment complex didn't rent it to her. They claimed discrimination. I'm not going to get into the discrimination piece of it because that's a whole topic for another day, discrimination cases, okay? But why this case was so important is the woman then ended up renting another apartment on the second floor. And because she had to walk up the steps, being pregnant, it hurt her knees. And she was claiming the damages, the personal injury damages to herself, her knees, as damages that the apartment complex was responsible for not renting to her. Unprecedented, because it's not just actual damages for not renting to her, it's the consequential damages. As a result of not renting, the consequence of that was it hurt her knees. This is what they were claiming. Thank goodness the case didn't go to court, because had it gone to court and they lost, then it would have set a legal precedent. So it hasn't done that. But the fact that the case was settled, I can tell you that other attorneys are going to see that and be emboldened by it and are going to start bringing consequential damages claims as well. And your $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 fair housing cases are now going to balloon like this one did into a $450,000 case. So the moral of the story is do not discriminate. Okay? Very important. Okay? Somebody's calling you on the phone and is looking for an apartment. Okay? Don't have any absolutes. It's the absolutes that get you in trouble. Okay? Don't say we absolutely do not rent to whatever. Okay? Say we're going to look into it, look at the particular circumstances of that particular case, and then make a determination. You may still determine that you're not going to rent to that person. That's okay. But don't say when they call you up on the telephone, we absolutely do not do whatever, because that will get you sued every time. Okay, I want to real quick talk about diversion. I know we're running very late in the program. The diversion program was set to expire at the end of December the 31st. There was a bill that was introduced by 3 council persons without advance warning. We sort of knew that it was going to happen, but we didn't know what was going to be in the bill. The bill says that the diversion program, which was set to expire at the end of December, and do you all know what the diversion program is? Okay, good. Okay, the diversion program, which was set to expire at the end of December, is going to be continued for an additional 1.5 years. What the bill actually said was that it's pretty much going to be continued indefinitely. We were able to talk to the council person and her staff and work through somewhat of a compromise, if you call it that, of a 1.5 year period for the bill. And there's a sunset provision in it that after 1.5 years it expires. We all know at the end of 1.5 years, it's going to come up. It's going to be extended again. But at least we have an argument. Maybe we get other council persons like Jimmy on there, and maybe they don't vote to extend the bill. Okay. The diversion program, the way it is now, you pretty much for just about every case, unless there's a really egregious circumstance, you have to first file for diversion before you can file an eviction case. When you file for diversion, you were supposed to initially get a mediation hearing, right? That was kind of the concept of diversion. It was really like an alternate mediation program. They just called it diversion, but they realized that they couldn't handle the volume of cases that they had. So instead of sending everyone to mediation, what they started doing was just sending a letter out to the tenants. And the letter says, you should talk to your landlord and try and work something out. And they're like, what do you think we've been doing? I think the landlord's been doing for the last 3 months that they haven't paid. You think they just waiting? They've been trying to do this. So it's really a farce at this point, that for those cases that there's a 30-day delay. And I have a real big problem with that. The city was supposed to come out with regulations to administer the program. So when the city passes an ordinance, the next step is for there to be regulations so you know how the ordinance is going to be implemented. That's just the natural progression of things. What happened with the diversion program is they passed the ordinance, they didn't have the regulations, and still to this day don't have the regulations. So it's absolutely amazing. So what they're doing is kind of flying by the seat of their pants. Okay, we thought about possibly filing a lawsuit against the city to get it overturned. As you know, it's very expensive to file lawsuits. It's also very time consuming. Because there was a sunset provision and it was going to expire at the end of December, it didn't really make sense to file a lawsuit. However, now it's being extended for another 1.5 years, with something we're going to be looking at. My suggestion is that when you file for diversion, what should happen is there should be a 7-day period where the city looks to see whether or not the person has any shot whatsoever of qualifying, i.e., they don't owe $10,000, they're not 5 months behind, and they have a job that they're going to be able to pay the ongoing rent. I don't care where they put that cutoff. So it could be 10,000 behind, it could be 5,000 behind. There's got to be some number that they know, and we all know, that the tenant's never going to be able to get caught up. There has to be some amount of months that we know that the tenant's never going to be able to get caught up because they're so far behind. And if the tenant doesn't have any income, we know they're not going to be able to pay the ongoing rent. So there should be a weeding out process where you take those cases. You should not have the 30-day delay. Give the city 7 days, try and figure it out. After the 7 days, you should be able to file your eviction complaint right away. Are you losing 7 days? Yes. Something I think is a good compromise in this situation to not have to lose at least 30 days, which is ridiculous. Okay, now it gets better. After the 7 days, the city takes a look at it, and this is my proposal, this isn't happening yet. The city takes a look at it, and if they think the person could qualify with all those 3 things that I mentioned to you, then that person you can't file against for the 31 days. Okay? Now, during that period of time, that person will get a housing counselor, and that housing counselor will look to see if there's some type of assistance that's available, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, or if there's some other way that an agreement can be reached with the landlord. They can reach an agreement, awesome, great, they reach an agreement, move on. If they can't reach an agreement, or the housing counselor determines at that point that they don't qualify, then the landlord should be reimbursed for the 30 days that they lost in rent. To Jimmy's point, why should the landlord be out that 30 days? Right? The city should come up with a way to pay for that 30 days. There's $30 million that's been appropriated in assistance for helping in situations where the person has gone through diversion. The city just recently appropriated the money. They appropriated $15 million this year and $15 million next year through that from the Housing Trust Fund, and somehow they found another $15 million. It's only $15 million. They just kind of found that somewhere. So they now have $30 million this year. I don't know. I think that's really funny that, okay, $5,000, $5,000. They just found $15 million. But whatever. It's actually great. It's great for landlords because they actually now have $30 million that they're going to apply to this program. They haven't written the regulations for that either to decide how that money is going to be distributed. But what's going to most likely happen is if you do go through the diversion process and the tenant qualifies for rental assistance, that rental assistance will come from that $30 million. So my feeling is take some of that $30 million and again give the landlord that money for the 30 days that they lost. There's no reason why that can't happen. Okay, so I've pitched that to the city. They're considering it, talking about it. We are at the table with regard to the regulations that hopefully will be coming out soon. I'm actually have a meeting on Monday to start discussing what those regulations should be for the diversion program. And part of those regulations are going to include what to do with that $30 million and how it should be distributed. Thank you all for coming, and I guess we'll take questions later.